Okay, we are recording. Benny of Rum Jungle, how are you?
Very well, Stu. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Whereabouts are you right now? It looks like a home studio.
Yeah. I'm just in my studio in Newcastle, Australia. Um, yeah, it's actually I won't give you too much of a long story, but this is actually the flat that I grew up in. So I actually grew up in it. This used to be my bedroom with two bunk beds in it, shared it with my brother until we were, I don't know, late teens, and then moved out about 10 minutes down the road, and then whole family moved out, and then I moved back in by myself. So yeah,
Ah, wonderful,
turned it into a home
wonderful.
studio. Yeah, been in this room all my life.
Oh, lovely stuff, lovely stuff. Well, look, we always kick off the podcast the same way, mate, and that's I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
Greatest ever intro. Tough. Tough question, I reckon. I don't know if I don't think this one would come necessarily as the greatest ever intro, because I think that'd probably be the boldest statement I could possibly make. But right now, an intro that I'm absolutely frothing is the new song Sticky by Tyler, the Creator. I think like the kind of build up into that until like it kind of like finally comes in properly, like when the bass and the drums come in is like absolutely unreal. And that's just what I've been rinsing at the moment, that whole album. So that's probably the first thing that's stuck into my mind.
That guy is constantly just rewriting the rule book. He's such a pioneer, man.
Oh, he's insane. His all of his production is like an absolute inspiration. And then just yeah, down to like lyrics and everything that he possibly does. And then yeah, coming up with that intro, I'm like, not too bad at all, Tyler. Not too bad.
So tell me a little bit about your approach to intros because as a young band, you know, you've grown up in and around sort of streaming services being the kind of, you know, a big focal point of getting your music out there, which is far different to, you know, maybe going back 30 years to the time of CDs and vinyl and stuff like that. And more emphasis being on sort of getting radio play and stuff like that. It's a far more sort of DIY culture now. But one of the things that I'm always intrigued to ask musicians is with that kind of accessibility of music now via streaming services where you've got everything literally within a second on your telephone or wherever you get your music and artists using social media things like TikTok and that now to get their music out there, and that all seems to kind of work alongside the fact that as a lazy generalization, younger generations coming through may have slightly shorter attention spans due to the how quick TikTok and these things and YouTube are being, you know, marketed and the algorithms are kind of pushing things to all be that way. And I'm going right away around the houses to ask this question, Benny,
No, I get you. I get
but I want
you.
to know when you come to writing and essentially intros, do any of these kind of perceptions of shortening attention spans and in a world where Spotify is awash with new music every day, do you find that there's a pressure for you to kind of hook them instantly, or do you feel that your music's your music and you know take it as you know as it comes?
I think definitely. I think it's like it's something that, and to be honest, I'm pretty guilty of it myself with the attention span. Like it's getting pretty bad, eh? But hey, what can you do? Honestly, I'm almost guilty of it myself, where it's like going through Spotify and trying to find some new songs, and like yeah, you only listen to the first like maybe let's say 30 seconds or something like that, and even that's probably being a little bit generous. It's sort of like yeah,
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. It does very much feel like you kind of need to hook them. But that said, it's like it's not like yeah, maybe it's sometimes it might pop into our minds or my mind, but it's not necessarily something that like we're chasing heavily. Like I don't know, it's just kind of like whatever feels right for that particular song. Sometimes like yeah, sometimes our intros will be like, way too long, like to what you'd expect, like, or what, quote unquote, would be hooking the attention of people. Like, for instance, like the first song that really kind of kicked stuff off for us was this song called Keep. And I distinctly remember one of the other boys from the band's dad one of the first things, or maybe the only thing that he said about it was like, yeah, intro's pretty long there, boys. And we were like, oh no. And what are we gonna do? But it turns out that that was the tune that kind of made some stuff happen for us. So it's like, I guess you never really know. But yeah, that said, it's like, yeah, I suppose like it kind of does pop into your mind, but at least for me, it's almost come in a lot of the like after the fact where I've kind of gone, oh, I guess we accidentally kind of did do something that hooked people. Like, if you kind of look at your more popular songs and you kind of go, oh, what actually happened? Like to make people, why do people like this? You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, like I suppose that song Keep, like it's got this really nice lead line to open it up from our guitarist Josh, and then like another one of our popular songs, like Everything Is Easy, it's got this nice little lead line and then a vocal line, and you kind of looking back on that, I'm like, oh, I guess maybe that was kind of the thing that might have hooked people in. But yeah, that said, it's not something that we're constantly striving to do, if you know what I mean. Like yeah, so like the opening track actually off our oh, I don't know, I guess it's that I could probably ramble on about this for the rest of the night, but I guess it's kind of like yeah, I guess it's just kind of like whatever feels right. And so like that first song on our album, um, it's got a pretty lengthy intro, but I think, and then it kind of breaks out into this thing, and it's like that's kind of almost become one of my favorites off the album, probably because of the intro. But I wouldn't necessarily say that in the first, 10 seconds it has this thing that specifically might hook something. I think it's like, I don't know, like you unconsciously kind of know if you're gonna like it within the first however long, like yeah, without specifically trying to make that happen, if that makes sense.
I'm going to ask you for track two to tell me the first song that you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please, Benny.
Yeah, so this is the first one that kind of like pops to my mind is so I was lucky enough to live in this really beautiful country town in Australia called Comboyne when I was about I don't know, it would have been like 10 or 11. And
And where's that? Is that on the coast?
yeah, it's sort of about an hour and a half inland from the coast. So it's sort of like up on this really nice plateau. Yeah, it's like about an hour inland from this city called Port Macquarie that's about 3 hours north of
It's a
Newcastle
beautiful
where I'm.
place, Port Macquarie, man.
Yeah, it's
Beautiful
beautiful.
place.
Yeah.
My
And
brother
so we
lives in my
decided
brother lives
to go.
in Coffs Harbour, and
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's like, yeah,
he runs a
generally
cool
kind of around
venue
there.
there. He runs a venue called the Hoey Moey.
Yeah, Hoey Moe. Yeah, we played at the Hoey Moe. He's
Oh
so sweet.
yeah,
We only went there once actually. We we played with a few artists that we're good mates with. Like they call them Moving Stills. They're from Australia as well. And the main thing that I remember from that night was just we were playing pool and there was just this guy hanging out and he just kept doing backflips next to the pool table. It was like, great, that's the Hoey Moe for you. But yeah, so this country town that I lived in, we lived there for about 6 months when I was about 10, um. And the school that I would go to was, I don't know, maybe like 200 meters down the road. There was like 30 kids in the whole school versus, a city school that has, 30 kids in one class. And then there's,
yeah.
1,000 other kids in the rest of the school. So it was like this really small, really nice school. But yeah, the song that came to my mind that had like a proper emotional impact. And again, it's probably something that's actually kind of come back after the fact where I've gone like, yeah, you know what, I reckon that has really stuck with me. Um, we would have breakfast in the morning and dad's a massive Beatles fan and now I am too because of that. And he's mainly a Paul McCartney fan. So we like, listened to a lot of Wings when I was growing up and a lot of his solo stuff when I was growing up. And I don't actually know what it's the B-side for. All I know is that it is a B-side and it's called I Lie Around. And it's just this kind of happy, ridiculous kind of song, but we'd play that every morning. And then as soon as it was done, I'd walk to school from there. So I kind of, start my day with this ridiculous kind of silly little B-side. And honestly, it's probably a reason that we do a lot of B-sides now. So I'm not sure if you knew, but we do every single that we do. We've done it for the last couple of projects. Every single that we do off the project, we'll put a B-side on there as well. And it's like not necessarily something that we really even talk about. It's just kind of something that we just add there as a bit of like, I don't know, yeah, a bit of fun kind of, which I guess now I'm thinking about it and getting really theoretical with it. Maybe that's what it all boiled down to is that I love that
Yeah,
song. And yeah. And that's kind of something that just gives a little bit extra bit of fun next to the song that you like
yeah.
hoping might bang, you know?
And you obviously you said there that your dad will be playing Beatles and Macca and stuff at home. Um, like, was home a musical environment? I mean, what other records was you being exposed to? And was there? I mean, obviously, I can see now in your studio there's guitars and keys and stuff. Like, was there instruments laying around at home growing up as well?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so in this house that I was lucky enough to grow, oh, this it's actually quite a small flat that I grew up in. There was this old piano that was in the hallway that would take up most of the hallway actually, and my dad would kind of play that all the time. He had this like this piece of music that he'd written, and I have to find it. I think he's recorded it somewhere, but it was this beautiful piece of music, and he would play it all the time on that piano. But otherwise, like yeah, guitars, records, like um, we had loads of records, and that would get played. Like mum would be smashing the Rolling Stones, dad would be playing the Beatles, and a whole lot of Police, like. And then a lot of like Australian tunes like Cold Chisel and everything like that as well. So like yeah, honestly, so my dad was actually in like a bunch of bands back in his time, and um funnily enough, actually when we were looking for a name for the band, we had some crap name. And then I went into the shed to find a bunch of stuff to record with, and found this old poster from one of Dad's old bands that I never knew he was in, and it was called Rum Jungle. And I was like, "Hey, can I have that name?" And he
No
was like, "Yeah,
way.
go ahead." Yeah, yeah. So it's actually where it ended up coming from. So carrying on the legacy at
That's
the
so
moment.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, look, we'll stay in the formative years, and I'm going to ask you for track three, Benny, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
Yeah, so honestly, there's probably so many. It's actually funny, like a lot that I can't even remember. Well, so that Tyler the Creator album, Wolf, actually was a big one that now comes to mind because I was thinking about Sticky. But yeah, one that I remember, and I think it's only on YouTube. I couldn't actually find it on Spotify, but it was like this acoustic version of this song called "The Flood" by Ocean Alley. That's like they're still a massive band in Australia, and they're still very much an inspiration for us as well as countless other indie rock bands in Australia, and rightly so, like they're a fantastic band. But yeah, something about this song, I don't know, I guess it was just the chords that we used and like the groove of it, and the melodies of it that I guess I just rinsed, and that was kind of around the time when because I only started kind of really learning to play guitar like at the very end of high school. Like I hadn't, as much as we had a lot of music in the house, it wasn't something that I necessarily had gotten into actively, if that makes sense. But yeah, around the time that I was learning how to, play bar chords, this was one of the songs that I would be listening to a lot and kind of trying to reproduce without any idea of how to do it. And then I guess from there you could probably, because I went back and listened to it recently and I was like, I guess you could probably sort of maybe find some sort of parallels from that song to a couple of the first songs off our very first EP, just with like the very slow, almost, yeah, trying to be reggae, like very bar chordy stuff. But yeah, I think that's probably the one that pops to mind from my school days.
How was school? Was it something you enjoyed?
Yeah, last 2 years it was real good. It was like, I mean, I didn't have to do maths, so that was nice. Which is probably a massive contributor. But yeah, it was really good. Something that we enjoyed, and it was pretty much where at least myself and Mage, our bass player, we were sort of best mates all through high school, and we were mates with Josh as well, but not necessarily so close. But then pretty much as soon as school ended, us three sort of came together. Um, yeah, just to sort of jam and make and ended up making the band. So
Was
yeah.
music and like creativity encouraged at your school?
Yeah, like very much so. I think like they like so I didn't actually do the music classes, but Mage did, and maybe Josh did. I don't know if Josh did actually, but Fraser definitely did, our drummer. But he's a couple years younger than us, so couldn't really tell you. Maybe I should know that, but yeah, I'd say it definitely was. Like we didn't go to like a performing arts school or anything like that, but we did go to a school that, at least in my experience, like yeah, it was like at least for me, yeah, I had a really, really good experience with it. Like ended up doing some drama that I don't doing the drama classes that I don't think I've actually ever admitted to, but those in themselves, I think almost like probably, yeah, it was a pretty massive contributing factor to me not wigging out on stage when we went on stage for the first time.
Did you know what you wanted to be when you was at school?
Nah, no idea, to be honest with you. I think actually what I thought I wanted to be was I wanted to be a filmmaker. And I guess that's probably why I would have done drama. And I did like another course as well that was very much focused on like, filmmaking and special effects and things like that. And that was really sweet. And it was something that I was really interested in. It's something that I did with my older brother who I shared this room with on the bunk beds. So we'd make movies a lot. But yeah, music wasn't necessarily something that I was like looking at doing too heavily until I guess I really got into like the bands like Ocean Alley and things like that. And then all of a sudden it kind of opened up this whole new world and then learned guitar and then yeah, that just being a thing to then do with your mates, I guess, kind of then turned into this thing where I was like, oh, hang on a sec, this is actually all I want to do from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep. So yeah, that's probably about it.
Just staying in the formative years for this last one as well. I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song you ever buying from a record store.
This is another one that I don't know if I've actually like admitted on like a podcast or an interview or anything like that. But I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie. It was it wasn't a record, it was the CD of LMFAO's Party Rock Anthem, which has definitely hasn't aged too well these days, but oh my God. I don't know, I must have been in like year 8 or something like that, or like so I would have been like what, 13, 14, whenever Party Rock Anthem or whatever those songs were like absolutely going off. And yeah, I guess I hadn't really developed my music taste too far beyond that. So I was like, please, mum, can I please get this CD? Um, and then we got it. And then, I'm 13, 14. Like all I knew was really Party Rock Anthem and doing the shuffle or whatever. Not really knowing the rest of the content in the album. And then proceeded to listen to that album from front to back with my mum on a road trip, which if anyone's listened to the album front to back, it's not the kind of album you want to be listening to with your mum, to be honest with you. But hey, what can you do? Part of the story, eh?
Mate, this is always my favorite question because, like, I've done nearly 600 episodes of this, and and having some of some of my musical heroes on this question, they're like, yeah, like, look, I'm not going to pretend to be cool here, and it's like no
Yeah.
one's ever come up with some kind of like avant-garde art rock B side for this question
Yeah.
because fuck off, man. You was listening to
Yeah.
shit when you was young because it was just infectious cool pop when you was little, and it was like,
Yeah, that's it.
and
That's
so
it.
so it's so good because everyone's always honest. Everyone's always bang on it with this one and just goes, look, man, it's not good, but I loved it when I was this
Yeah.
big, you know.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And hey, at the time I loved it and that's what it was.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. I bought a lot more records then that are, artistic and whatever. But yeah, back then that was kind of it.
Absolutely. Let's go clubbing. I'm going to ask you for track 5 to tell me the song that soundtracked. I mean, you're still a very young lad, so I'm sure you're still out partying. But tell me the song that soundtracked your year's clubbing.
Yeah, so first couple of years out of school, that was when I was kind of really getting into like the Australian scene a lot more, like the radio station here at Triple J.
So
Is that
tell the listeners a little bit about Triple J because in the UK we've got Six Music and Radio X and stuff, but like Triple J's, it's fucking huge, isn't it? And they do the thing at Christmas, right? Do they do the thing the end of year top?
Yeah, 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 the hottest 100.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a big national radio station, like very much a youth station, very much like a tastemaker station, and it's very much the one that you, as an emerging artist in Australia, it is like that is what you want to be played on. Like, there's nothing else. Like, yeah, getting community radio station, fantastic, you know what I mean? But it's like those guys in Australia, it's like that's the pinnacle, and especially when we were starting, and especially when I was finishing up school and then sort of carrying on to just after school, it was and still is, yeah, this massive thing. And yeah, they run this sort of democratic voting hottest 100 songs of the year, and that's kind of like a massive event in Australia. And so I don't actually know if this track made it on there. I hope it did because I feel like I would have voted for it one year, but there was this Yeah, electronic. I think they're a duo, called Slumberjack, and they did a bunch of tracks that I absolutely loved, when I was first coming out of school. And the one song that was like absolutely lodged in my head all the time and that I would always be putting on whenever I could was just this one called R.A. And yeah, just so many good parts in it. And I was lucky enough to see them live a few times. And not only that, was lucky enough to play our very first ever festival, on the smallest stage at the earliest time in our hometown called This That. Slumberjack was playing as well and got to meet them backstage. So that was kind of like very much a pretty amazing moment for me. I'm pretty sure I embarrassed the hell out of myself. I was like, when you're meeting someone, it's like, yeah, and you're shaking and things like, hi, I'm Benny, and then they're just trying to, hang out on stage. But yeah, I think that was probably one of the biggest ones for me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, let's go home. Favorite song from an artist from your home county, please.
Yeah, so there is like quite a lot. Um,
Tell me a little about the scene.
Especially.
Tell me about the scene, like where you grew up, and how it is, because being where I'm from and seeing how there's almost a route to getting noticed and signed in the UK. You play the fuck out of London, and you hope that a
Yeah.
label's going to pick up on you, and the same can be said for Manchester and Liverpool and lots of the big cities in the UK. But how does it work in Oz?
Yeah, so it's about the same. It's very like we're lucky that we're real close to Sydney because it's obviously like Sydney's one of the biggest places that it's all happening as you'd expect. But yeah, like for us at least, it's just yeah, it's pretty much the same in that it's just like you just absolutely rinse shows in your hometown. It's like every weekend you're playing somewhere new and you're playing the exact same place to the exact same people like a fair few times. And then yeah, it's like if you're in Newcastle, then you duck off to Sydney, and then if you're feeling a bit bold and you want to go a bit further, you duck down a little bit further to Wollongong. It's like another hour south of Sydney, and that's like a fantastic town. Really good music scene in Wollongong, actually. Haven't played there in a while, sadly, but that was one of the big places that we kind of like got a foothold. And then at least in our experience, actually, it's actually very much in Queensland, like Brisbane and the Gold Coast and the Sunshine Coast, like that kind of run of cities, Sunshine Coast being about an hour north of Brisbane and Gold Coast being about an hour south. That kind of strip is actually not to say that there's a lot of other cities that like aren't into live music or at least into alt rock, but there's just something about that kind of strip of towns where it's like people absolutely love it. Like, and they're out and they're not only loving it, they're kind of like they're getting invested in you as well, kind of thing. So that's it's kind of how it is in Australia. It's like, yeah, and then once you do that, and then once you get to a certain point, you make the massive flight over to Perth. And then honestly, that said, it's like if Perth was a little bit closer, Perth would be the equivalent of Brisbane, but it's obviously a 5 hour flight or like a 2 day straight drive. So it's like Perth may as
Yeah.
well be an up country. But that said, like Perth and especially Western Australia, there's a massive music scene there and there's some like amazing artists coming out of WA. So it's like, Spacey Jane's happening there. There's like a bunch of other bands like Dice that are coming out of there, real hot as well. And yeah, but like in terms of what I'm absolutely loving at the moment. It's not necessarily from our home city, Newcastle, but it's kind of close enough in Sydney. Is this artist Don West, who is kind of kicking around in the same scene, but almost, you know, this time next year will be kicking about on the worldwide scene. Like he's already, yeah, in the last couple of months, absolutely exploded with this most recent EP. I can't remember what it's called. I think it might be self-titled, but there's a couple of songs on there that are just absolutely amazing. It's like this soulful kind of Motowny, real like 70s, um, you know, influenced music. And the one that really hooked me first was this song called Rather Be Lonely. That is just this like beautiful, beautiful song. That yeah, I don't know if I could describe it any other way. It's just fantastic, and it's written by yeah a couple of mates as well as Don West. So it's kind of like yeah, feel a bit of a connection to it, and then it's also very much in the way that I'm like I feel really proud that I'm loving it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, for your last track, Benny, you get to play Tastemaker, and I'm going to ask you, to tell me a song that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear.
Well, funnily enough, it's from the frontman of Wonder Horse, which I'm sure a lot of people now know in England, yeah, because they're starting to really go, which is so well deserved. They are unreal. So I actually um, was lucky enough to catch them in Brighton on our first run in the UK in May of 2024. Our promoter, Eve, who's one of the loveliest people you'll ever meet, brought us along. She was like, I'm sure you guys will love these guys. And it was like one of our only nights off. And it was so, therefore it was kind of, one of the only bands that we really got to see apart from Absolutely Any Time, who was, again, also a fantastic band who got to support us around the UK and Europe on that first run. But listened to them and then kind of came home in the in the couple month period before we came back and yeah, really got into them. And then from there, obviously then got into Jacob Slater's solo work that he's put out as well. And there's a song on, I don't know if it's an EP or an album, whatever it is that he's put out, and it's called I Do. And it's just like, yeah. Again, like this song I was just talking about before, it's just absolutely beautiful, and it's one of those songs that you kind of listen to and you go, oh my God, I wish I wrote this because it's just so, flooring. So yeah, if you haven't listened to it already, which I'm sure a lot of people in the UK probably have, then get onto it.
Well, we make it nice and easy for people to do that, Benny, and to listen to all the other songs that we've spoken about today. Because we put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the pod, so everyone can go and listen to your song picks. And then, of course, we will.
I don't know if they have a party rock anthem. Let's get into it.
That, do you know what? When we
Yeah.
put the playlists up, they look so fucking random
Yeah.
because, like, I think when I had like, it was something like, I think we had one of like the Foo Fighters on, and I think like his first track was something like, oh, it was something so shockingly bad, and like you just got this suit, and it's like, why is the dude from the Foo Fighters put this on his playlist? It's like, obviously you need to
Yeah.
get the context of the show as well.
Absolutely right.
But we'll obviously put Rum Jungle on there as well. And I mean, speaking of Rum Jungle, we've been chatting about everyone else's music. So let's talk about what's happening with you guys at the moment. Where are we at?
Yeah, so we're putting out our debut album on the 21st of February. Long time coming. Like we've been playing as a band for ages. We've done a couple of EPs, but we kind of never, I don't know, I guess it's like we made that very first EP very much when we were like still learning how to, play bar chords, you know what I mean? So it's like we didn't actually really even know how to write a proper song at that stage. And it's kind of like I think we wanted to give ourselves, a long time and a lot of experience to kind of get to the point where we felt like we could make a full album that's, actually really reflective of how we want things to sound. Because it's very much that thing, especially when you're starting off, is it's like what you hear in your head for the song that you're writing isn't always, at least in our experience, how you can then reproduce it. You know what I mean? Like those first songs sounded completely different in my head to how they turned out. That said, I still love how they turned out in hindsight, but I think now with this album, it's very much this, it's finally just, sounds exactly how we want it to sound. Like every single song. It's a rare thing with all four of us to all four of us like something. There's usually a lot of push and pull with all of our different tastes and all of our different egos. So to have, what is it, 11 or I think it's 12 songs that each of us absolutely adore is kind of like, something that, however well it does, it's kind of like that's special enough to me. So, I think it's like, I think it's a sweet journey. I think it's got a lot of different sounds. It's not necessarily the kind of album that you'd put on and feel the same the whole way through. But then again, it's always that thing where it's like, I feel like you as the artist always hear your songs as starkly different songs. And then someone else listening to it, they'll be like, oh yeah, all these songs sound the same or something like that. But to me, I think I'm really happy with all of them. Like I think every single one of them I could, absolutely go on about.
And
But
playing live, you're going to tour the hell out of it.
absolutely, of course. That's pretty much all we're doing these days, touring the hell out of everything that we have, which is honestly amazing. It's the best. Like we're absolutely loving it. And especially this album. It's like the songs. Yeah, the songs that are on there, like there's a bunch of songs on there that, I think will translate really well live. There's already a few that have translated really well live that we've been playing that are already out. There's actually a few that we already played that weren't out at this point. So like for instance, yeah, that the very first song on the record that has this, yeah, pretty long intro, is probably the one that we're most excited to play. Um, because it does just feel like this huge opener. So we're really excited to translate that live, and in rehearsals it's already just felt so fun to play. So yeah, there'll be a hell of a lot of touring. I think we're doing New Zealand into Australia into America and Canada, and that's just in the first. I think that's up until March, and then I don't know if we've announced anything after that, but if it's up to me, then yeah, we'll probably be hitting the UK a couple more times, Europe, and absolutely everywhere that'll take us.
Wonderful. And if people want to keep up to speed with tour dates and announcements and stuff, where's the best place to follow all things Rum Jungle?
Yeah, just I guess like our Instagram or like any of the socials, pick one. I'm pretty sure we're called Rum Jungle Band under all of them, so should be able to find it. Otherwise, like our website, pretty easy to find some tour dates if you're keen to come along to a show. Yeah, we're real keen to take this album on the road, so should be a really fun show.
Wonderful. Well, if it's cool with you, I'll tag you on the Instagram when we drop this. So if people aren't following you already, we make it nice and easy for them to go and do so.
Hell yeah.
Benny, it's been an absolute joy talking records with you, mate. Thank you so much for your
Cheers.
time.
Appreciate it, mate.
Absolute
Thank
pleasure. I'm
you.
going to press stop. Don't go anywhere.